And view her campaign and donate if possible.
And was this for county commissioner?
Yes.
For county commissioner?
That's correct.
And did you ever have occasion to see Jennifer and Joseph's foster daughters?
Yes, I did.
On about how many occasions?
Approximately 3 times.
And in what shape were they in when you saw them?
They seemed like perfectly normal girls to me.
Was there anything about them that alarmed you?
No.
Do you see any bruises or marks?
No.
And did you see any cuts or bruises?
No.
And how did the girls seem around Jennifer?
They seemed very friendly, very nice. As a matter of fact, I believe I told Jennifer once that they were, in my opinion, they were spoiled, but I was saying it out of kindness. Basically, the girls had all the clothes they needed, they had the food that they needed. In addition to that, they were also being taken all over the community, involved with the community, as well as participated in sports or gymnastics.
And how did the girls seem around Jennifer? How did they react to Jennifer?
They were friendly. I mean, they're just normal girls. I mean, I was raised with 3 sisters, so it just seemed natural.
And how did they react around Joseph?
The same.
And how did Jennifer treat the girls?
Well, like they were her own. As I stated previously, she not only fed them, she clothed them, she provided living arrangements for them to include sports activities. I mean, as me growing up as a child, I didn't have that kind of opportunity. I kind of wish I had that kind of opportunity, but...
When Layla was in her cast, did that prevent her from playing?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you ever see Jennifer discipline the children for sleeping in the car?
No.
Did you ever see Jennifer discipline the children by spanking them?
No.
Did you ever see her use a belt on them?
No.
Let's talk about the campaign a little. Did you or Jennifer, did you accompany her to any BOC meetings, Board of Commissioners?
I did not accompany her to any meetings, but she would tell me about them all the time because she was very passionate about what she does. So she would go to these meetings to represent her community and try to do whatever she could. I believe there was one time that they were trying to develop like a general dollar around the vicinity, and she was trying her best to let that not occur around the Ola area. So of course she would go to these meetings to try to express the opinion of the community and try to change or alter their decision going forward.
Did you know the type of relationship she had with the police and the DA?
I know during that time she was also interning, so Jennifer had a lot of responsibilities and a lot of duties during that time period, aside from going to college, going to work, and fostering these kids. She was interning for Jim Wright.
And did you know the type of relationship she had with Mr. Wright?
Just interning for him.
Just interning for him, okay. We've asked you about Jennifer. Have you ever seen Joseph discipline the children in any way?
No.
Have you ever seen him use a belt on the children?
No.
Any indication that the children were afraid of either Jennifer or Joseph?
No.
And on the occasions you lived with the Rosenbaum, was there ever any type of ritual you noticed involving Joseph and his coffee?
So, as I previously said, I've lived with them a couple of times. During the morning, Joseph likes to go downstairs and as soon as he wakes up, he usually goes downstairs and creates a cup of coffee. He usually has a Keurig-based style type of coffee that he puts ground beans into, puts it into the coffee cup, mixes coffee, and then he adds like cream or sugar, but he mixes it with his butter knife that he usually leaves on the counter all day.
Okay, and what else does he do with the butter knife?
He only uses it for his coffee that I was aware of.
Oh. When the girls were around, did you ever see Jennifer drunk?
No.
Did you ever see Jennifer yanking them by the arm going up,
No, I did not.
down the stairs?
No.
Did you ever see either Joseph or Jennifer lay a hand on these children?
No.
You worked for Delta for a period of time.
I did.
And when you worked for Delta, did there come an opportunity where you provided assistance with Jennifer and Joseph getting tickets to South Dakota?
I did.
I'm going to show you what I marked as defendants 55 and ask you if you can identify that for the record.
I definitely can. This is the travel record that shows all the tickets that I've issued over the past years, to include Jennifer's tickets that I issued to them for that trip.
Is Jennifer's tickets highlighted in this document?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
At this time, I would tender to the record defendants exhibit 55.
Any objection? It's admitted.
May I publish it?
You may.
while we're waiting for it to come on, it looks like it's coming on. Could you identify for me what I marked and showed to the state as defendants exhibits 52, 53, and 54?
Joseph, Jennifer, at that actual trip that they took.
Is this a trip to South Dakota?
It was during that trip, yes, during that time frame.
At this time, I attended 52, 53, and 54 has been recorded.
Admitted.
Tell us what we see here that's highlighted in yellow.
So what you're looking at here is a PPR number, a personal something number, that's usually associated with travel assignments. So when I issue out a ticket, at least specifically to Jennifer, she will show up as 979633-04. Any number that's reflective that shows that number is Jennifer Rosenbaum. It's one of the privileges provided by Delta Airlines. When you work for the Delta Airlines, you are afforded certain number of buddy passes as well as a companion pass. Jennifer, in this instance, had a companion pass for me that I gave her travel authorization to use my benefits to travel with Delta Airlines. So, as you will notice, on October 1st, she flew out from Atlanta to MSP and from MSP to REP, which was the end destination. Same thing on her return. You'll notice from REP to MSP, from MSP to ATL. And S3 just means the level of priority that's associated with that ticket. So an S3 just means general priority. I did upgrade her to an S2 at one time, and that was just to ensure that she made it on the plane because it's all standby. It's not officially confirmed tickets, it's just standby based travel.
Is there any indication that she returned to Atlanta from Rapid City?
Yes, on October 5th, as shown there.
Okay. What is this a picture of? What are we looking at?
That is a picture of Joseph Rosenbaum.
What is this picture of?
That is a picture of Jennifer.
Is that a picture of Mount Rushmore?
To my knowledge, it is. I've never visited the place, but at least that's what I was,
Thank you. I have nothing further at this time.
All right, thank you. Close.
So you didn't go on a trip within the South Dakota?
That is correct.
So you don't know who all was there except for what's in these pictures?
State that. Could you
You
repeat
don't
that?
know who was in there, who was at South Dakota or Mount Rushmore based on what you see in these pictures?
No, I know for a fact that Jennifer and Joseph traveled because they used my passes and my authorization. Not only did they travel using my passes and authorization, I also monitored their flights because it is a standby flight. There's a lot of risk associated with not making to the flight, so I had to monitor and ensure that I was there to potentially alter their travel through different cities. That's why you'll see the stop at MSP and then to our whatever the airport code is. I forgot.
My question was, you didn't go with them?
No, that's correct. I did not.
You just got flights for Jennifer and Joseph?
That is correct. Yep, that is correct.
And those pictures are based on what they have shown you that they took?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh. And you indicated that you lived with the Rosenbaums at some point in time, but you didn't live with them when they had the girls, correct?
No,
You visited them 4 times.
I didn't.
So when you would see the girls, first of all, you never took care of them, you never had to change their diapers, you never had to give them a bath or any of
That is
that,
correct.
right?
No.
So would it be fair to say that you never saw them undressed?
That is correct.
So you don't know what injuries or bruises they may have had underneath their clothes?
That is correct.
And you indicated that they seem to love on the defendants.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be fair to say, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors when you're not there?
Well, I mean, I only know what I see.
Exactly. So when they're home alone with the defendants, you have no idea what's going on.
No, that is correct. But I can at least, from my years of knowing Jennifer, I could at least, I feel very confident in saying that she treated them very well.
Based on what she showed you?
Based on what I know of Jennifer and Joseph.
Based on what she presented to you when you saw her in school, when you saw her in the military?
That's correct.
That's what you know about her. What she puts out there in the public.
And I've spent quite a bit of time with both Jennifer and Joseph.
And you indicated that at some point in time you were in the military with Ms. Rosenbaum.
That is correct.
And you said you were discharged in April of 2013?
From the National Guard.
From the National Guard. What type of discharge did you receive?
It was honorable.
Honorable. What about Ms. Rosenbaum? Do you know?
I'm not aware.
Oh, I'm going to look forward to finding for you. But while y'all were in the military together, you indicated that y'all had certain training.
We did.
I want to back up before you.
That's fine.
I think Ms. Ms. Mull asked you about Jennifer's relationship with the DA and with the police in Henry County.
Yes.
Right? And to your knowledge, there wasn't any political vendetta against her, was there?
Based on her occurrence to the BOC meetings, at least the way it was explained to me, because I wasn't there, but we would discuss about progress and how things are being approached. There did seem to be some type of discomfort and tension. What was going on with her campaign, and as well as representing the BOC and so on.
And that information came from Jennifer, correct?
Right.
Because you didn't go to the meeting.
That is correct.
You didn't observe any tension or strain or anything of that nature.
Physically, no. In person, no, if that's what you're referring to.
Exactly. You didn't observe it. You were told it by the defendant.
Yes, that is correct.
But despite this tension, she got an internship at the DA's office without going through the entire application process. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Oh.
I will also add that that was, at least to my knowledge, she was at the internship before it became discomforting.
Before it became discomforting. Did you know it became discomforting because posting things that she had been told not to post by the DA? Not following his directives?
Not specifically.
She didn't tell you that part?
She mentioned several items. Obviously, am I going to remember everything? Not specifically, but I will say that once again, she is a very passionate individual, and she will do her best to do what is necessary in order to accomplish that end state, that end goal. And Jennifer, I feel like she did express to me that there were a couple of postings that may have not been advisable.
So your understanding is that she posted things that she wasn't supposed to, and that's what caused the issue between
No.
That's not your understanding.
At least my understandings are separate based off different occurrences.
Based on what Jennifer Rosenbaum told you.
That's right.
And then you told Ms. Mull that you knew that you never saw the girls get a spanking or a beating.
That's correct.
Or tortured for falling asleep in the car.
That is correct.
How many times did you ride in the car with the Rosenbaums and the girls? Let me ask you a better way. Were you in every car ride
No.
with the defendants and the girls?
I was not at every
So
car.
there could have been times where they fell asleep and they got a whipping, but you weren't there.
I wasn't there every time, so.
So there could have been times when that happened, but you didn't observe it, correct?
It's possible. I don't believe it to be so, but it's possible.
But you didn't observe it and you weren't there every time.
That's correct.
And you indicated that you never saw them get a spanking with a belt or any other object in the home.
That's correct.
But we've established you weren't always there and you didn't live with them during the time that they cared for these girls.
That is correct.
Or was supposed to be caring for them. Correct.
Say that statement
I
one
said
more time.
you weren't there during the time that they were supposed to be caring for these girls.
I was not
Living in the
there
home.
all the time.
Thank you. And you indicated that they were in gymnastics, things that you didn't get a chance to do.
That's correct. Yeah.
Did you go to the gymnastics class?
No, I did not.
Did you get pictures of them in gymnastics classes?
I believe Jennifer did show me a couple of pictures.
Did you get a picture of Layla at gymnastics?
At this current moment, I do not recall, but Jennifer was very adamant about showing me a lot of the pictures and how they were progressing, and she was very happy with the girls.
So your expectation was that they were in gymnastics, you would have received pictures of both girls.
I can't say receive, but shown, yes.
Shown. So if both girls were in gymnastics, you'd have been shown pictures of both girls in gymnastics.
Yes.
And you, like I said, you never went to any of the gymnastics.
I did not.
Based on what Jennifer Rosenbaum told you.
That is correct.
And then let's talk about this military training. You said you didn't have training,
That's correct.
but you had, I think, rescue breathing training?
If you want to, okay, so I had combat lifesaver training. There's a differentiation between the two. One's specifically related to combat-related incidents, and CPR is separate. As a matter of fact, in the training documentation, you will see them stated separately because they are two separate processes.
I asked you, did you have rescue breathing training? We spoke on yesterday.
It was a step.
We spoke on yesterday.
There was a step
There was a step called what?
that said rescue breathing.
Did you go through that training?
I went through the combat lifesaver training.
And one of the steps was rescue breathing.
One of the subsets is rescue breathing. However, it is not a performance action measure, but it is stated in the training.
It's stated in the training. Did you have the training?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenbaum was in that training with you as well.
No, she was not.
So she didn't have training while she was in the military.
She would have had some level of training. Whether it's the same, I cannot state for a fact.
Y'all were in the same unit, correct?
We were in the same unit. No, okay. So now you're mixing a couple of training sessions together because we both attended basic training in separate years. Basic training is when we received this training. She would have probably received it back in 2009. I received it back in 2010. These are way far back dates.
So she would have received it the year before you did.
Yes, if she. Mhm.
What did you learn when you learned that step of rescue breathing?
The step, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's followed by, the step encompasses giving air to the victim, per se.
So you walk up on somebody and you just start giving air.
No.
Not steps before that?
There are steps.
What's the first step?
Making sure there's nothing obstructing the airway before you go into that step.
And the next step?
And then the next step was From there, then you check for breathing or pulses and stuff like that. It's something that's insufficient.
Let's start with, if they're not breathing,
Well, no,
then
no.
when you start giving
Well,
breath
first
control?
you unobstruct it to make sure, to be able to verify if they are or are not.
Okay. So you unobstruct it, and if they're not breathing, that's when you start giving breaths.
Yeah. Well, yes. If something that's sort.
If you check their pulse and they don't have a pulse, you start compressions.
Not that I'm aware of. Not within this training.
So they didn't teach you if someone doesn't have a pulse. They didn't teach you what to do as part of combat training.
No.
So they just said, just sit there and look at them.
Well, I mean, that's, if I'm thinking about the training correctly, that's where it ends, because it's a performance step measure. And at least as far as I can remember, as a matter of fact, it's very interesting points that you bring up, because once again, I do want to differentiate between the two, combat lifesaver course and CPR. CPR, once again, is an accredited course that you have, that's accredited by the American Heart Association or the American Red Cross. This course is not. This course is not specifically tailored for CPR. As a matter of fact, within the training, there's a differentiation between the two. And I'll take it even a step further, because once...
Excuse me, Mr. Moreno, let me ask you the question, because I didn't ask you about your CPR.
1 second, please. Just an objection.
I've asked him to be allowed to finish his sentence. He wasn't allowed to finish talking.
All right.
He indicated he was about to go.
well, it's within the same topic.
Excuse me. Okay. When I'm ruling on an objection, you have to be quiet. Okay? And another thing. There's too much talking over. Okay? Let's see. You can finish your response to the question.
So she mentioned all these steps. In addition, once you're done with the giving air, there is another sub-bullet that references CPR. Within the sub-bullet, it states only to conduct CPR if you know. But this is in the training manual that was published in 2007. As a matter of fact, you can actually Google it. It's Combat Lifesaver. But as you move further throughout the years, the Army specifically amends that and publishes a new edition in 2012. That bullet is no longer if you know it. As a matter of fact, it states it is recommended to not perform CPR, and it even goes further by stating that CPR is not a combat lifesaver task.
My question was, did they teach you, if someone did not have a pulse, to give them compressions to help their heartbeat?
I'm sorry, say that again?
My question is, did they teach you, if you had a fellow military soldier next to you, they weren't breathing, they didn't have a pulse, you said they told you to give them rescue breath. If they didn't have a pulse, you're saying they didn't teach you to do compressions to help their heart continue to beat.
So I will answer your question, and I want to add a little bit more to it, because I think it's a very important question. It stops at that sub-bullet that I mentioned. If you know how to provide CPR, proceed with CPR in 2007. So as you mentioned chest compressions, I was reading through the Mayo Clinic, and the Mayo Clinic references chest compressions as to provide the ability of someone to circulate blood, but not necessarily to add to... I'm sorry, you would have to ask the question again. I think I just lost my train of thought.
My question was, what did they tell you to do if somebody didn't have a pulse?
That's exactly what I just told you to do. I mean, that's... Okay, so I'll restate it again. So it states, if they don't have a pulse, to continue with CPR if you know how to do CPR. If you don't, well then I guess there's nothing you can do but expect for the medic to show up.
So what you're saying is they didn't teach you to do chest compression as part of your training if someone didn't have a pulse?
We did have needle chest decompression, but I don't think that's exactly the same, because it's associated with a needle and where you stab the individual in the lungs.
Did they tell you to push on their chest if they didn't have a pulse?
Not that I can recall.
So they didn't teach you that at all?
Not that I can recall.
So they said just wait and watch them?
They didn't say just wait. I hate to say, but I guess there's unfortunately so much you can do.
So they told you if they didn't have a pulse, don't do anything if you don't know how to do anything. They didn't teach you how to do it, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying, I apologize. So what I will state is that if it were me, I would just continue giving them breaths.
And just breathing and nothing else?
I would hope for the best.
And that's what you learned in the military?
Well, being a medic is not my primary job function.
That's not what I asked you, Ms. Marino. I asked you, that's the training that they taught you in the military, is to just give breaths and don't do anything further if your fellow soldier does not have a pulse.
So I have a problem with that saying, because you said to not do anything further. I think what they try to do is give us enough guidance to be able to at least to be able to perform something. And using that guidance, I would have just continued with rescue breathing. They never say specifically to stop. But they don't say how to continue.
I know it may be uncomfortable to answer the question, but I need you to answer the question.
Okay.
You said they taught you to do whatever you needed to do in order to save that person's life. But your testimony is it was just based on whatever you decided you needed to do. Not
No. Oh, sorry. Once again, so within those guidelines provided, or at least within the structure provided, that's To the best of my knowledge.
And I'm trying to figure out, how did they guide you? If they don't have a post, what did they guide you to do in your training?
So there's a lot of steps that occur, at least in combat. Once you don't know what you can do, the only option is to continue the battle because mission comes first. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do until, unfortunately, the victim passes.
So I want to be clear, your testimony is here that the military never taught you to do chest compressions to keep somebody's circulation going, to keep their heartbeat going during your basic training. That's your testimony?
If you differentiate the needle chest decompression, then yes.
So they never taught you to press on the chest?
That I am aware of, yes.
You didn't learn that in basic training?
That I am aware of, yes.
Nothing further.
Ms. Marie, did they teach you how to do a Heimlich maneuver on a toddler?
No, they did not. The purpose of this, once again, is for combat-related incidents.
Did they teach you to do CPR on a toddler?
No, they did not.
Anything else, Ms. Young?
Nothing further.
All right, you can step down. Any objections is being excused? Next call, next witness.
Amber Evans, Your Honor? Amber Evans? Would you raise your hand and just swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Evans, how do you know Jennifer Rosenbaum?
She coached my son's t-ball team.
And when she coached your son's team, did you ever see any anger or frustration toward the boys?
Not that I recall.
Can everybody hear her? You please speak up.
Not that I recall.
Just pull the microphone closer to you.
How old was your son when she was coaching his t-ball team?
3 or 4.
And did you have occasion to attend a birthday party t-ball banquet at Jennifer's house?
Yes, ma'am.
And in 2015, did you have occasion to see Jennifer with Millie and Layla at the Chick-fil-A
Yes,
back to
ma'am.
school bash? And that back to school bash is outdoors, isn't it?
It was.
And can you describe for us how everything was set up? People sitting on chairs or sitting on the floor? How was it?
I think they put out chairs under a tent. There was like a bouncy house thing, and it was just in their parking lot.
Okay. And did you ever see Jennifer at the Chick-fil-A bash pop or hit Layla?
Not that I recall.
And that is something you would have recalled, isn't it?
Possibly.
You're not happy to be here, are you?
No, ma'am.
And you're here under subpoena. You're not here voluntarily, are you?
Correct.
And you saw Jennifer's interactions with the girls at these various occasions that you went to, correct?
I only saw her at the Chick-fil-A with the girls, not at that birthday party thing.
You didn't see her at the birthday party?
No, that was way before.
Okay. But you saw her at the Chick-fil-A back to school bash. Did you see her anywhere else?
No, not with the girls.
Did you see her spank either of the girls or hear either of them cry?
Not that I recall.
And isn't it true, Ms. Evans, that you have written Facebook messages of support for Jennifer, correct?
Right after it happened, yes.
And you told her, what did you tell her in those Facebook?
I don't exactly recall.
Would it help to look at the Facebook pictures to refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
See if this refreshes your recollection.
Can I take them?
Sure.
Recently, about a year and a half before my mother-in-law passed away, so we were still having that fresh. So with the death of Layla, I went ahead and reached out to her, and I said, I'm sorry for your loss. I saw a post about the thing on Facebook, and I said it was one-sided. You could see, anyone who knows you knows how much you love the foster kids in our county. If you need anything, we're here for you.
Did you write her any other message?
She responded, and I said that it looked like she cared about the girls when I saw her with them at the Chick-fil-A thing, and we'd be praying for her.
Thank you, sir. I have nothing further at this time.
All right, thank you, Cross. And then for hearing objections, stop, okay?
Okay.
Good morning, Ms. Evans. You had testified that you saw Jennifer at the Chick-fil-A bash?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have an independent recollection of what Millie looked like?
No, ma'am.
And do you have an independent recollection of what Layla looked like?
No.
And were you with Jennifer the entire Chick-fil-A bash?
No, ma'am.
So you saw her for approximately how many minutes or seconds?
I just kind of ran into her, did some chit chat, and kept it moving.
So about 5 minutes?
Possibly longer than that, but nothing significant.
And you never went to Jennifer and Joseph's house when they were caring for the girls?
No, ma'am.
And would it be fair to say that you never saw Millie or Layla undressed at any time?
No.
So you never saw their skin or what could have been on their skin?
No.
And you indicated that you sent a Facebook message in support of Jen or giving her some support.
Mm-hmm.
And that was right after the death of Layla?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
And since writing that message, has your opinion of Jennifer changed?
I object. Her opinion is not an issue here. She's been testified to what she's seen or did. Not her opinion.
She's a fact witness.
After,
Sustain the objection.
and after you wrote those messages to Jennifer, have you had any further communication with her?
I did have a little bit.
And what was that communication?
She invited me to a Christmas party thing, and like nothing significant. Yeah.
Did you go to the Christmas party?
No.
And you stated that you were not happy to be here?
Correct.
And how come?
The more that's come out, I'm not.
Well, I object. This is not about Layla trying to get her opinion in as opposed to fact.
Your Honor, this witness was asked by the defense that essentially she's under subpoena and doesn't want to.
You stayed and watched the movie with Rosenbaum that day.
At the Chick-fil-A thing?
Yeah.
I watched a movie there, but I was not with them at the during the movie.
Thank you.
Anything else for this witness? Thank you, ma'am. You can stay.
Thank you.
Next call, next witness.
Mary Rosenbaum.
Mary Rosenbaum. Yes.
Raise your hand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may have a seat. If you would state your name for the record.
Mary Jane Rosenbaum.
And how do you know Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Joseph is my son. Jennifer is his wife, my daughter-in-law.
And how long have you known Jennifer?
Her and my son got together in 2009 when I was in Iraq. So I met her after I got home.
Did you have occasion to attend any trainings with her?
I did.
Explain to the jury how that came to be.
I was in the battalion. My unit was the battalion. And Jen was in the 190th. When the battalion goes on a training mission or AT or something of that nature, gets called up for a special detail, they usually take some of the companies with them. And being in the military, there's not a whole lot of females. So what they would do would be put all the females in all the units together in the same barracks.
And did you get to know Jennifer that way as well?
I did, yeah.
And was this after she got together with Joseph?
Yes.
Talk to me about, let me ask you a question with regards to training in child CPR or child Heimlich maneuver. Did you in your military career ever get trained in child CPR or child Heimlich maneuver?
Not in my military career. I did in my civilian.
In your civilian career?
Yes.
But in your trainings that you've gone to with Jennifer, have they done any training on a child CPR or child Heimlich maneuver?
Not to my knowledge.
When did you come to find out that Jennifer and Joseph were getting Layla and Millie?
I believe it was June. They were in the process of getting them, and they were on a visitation with them.
And can you tell us what the first meeting was like with Layla and Millie and you?
Sorry.
When was the first time you met the girls?
Jen and Joseph brought the girls over to my house.
Tell me, how did the girls fit into your family?
Very well. Fell in love with them right away.
How many grandchildren do you have, and what are their ages?
I have two of my daughter's children. And right now they're 12 and 14.
And did they spend any time with Millie and Layla?
Yes.
Did you attend Layla's birthday party?
Yes, I did.
And that would be on July 25th, correct?
Yes, I have pictures that say July 25th.
And did you attend Layla's birthday party
Yes.
and Millie's birthday party?
Millie's was, trying to remember the date. I believe it was October 17th because that's my younger brother's birthday as well.
Did you and Jennifer and Joseph and Millie and Layla ever go to Hilton Head?
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about that, please? When that was?
We always go the same time. We have fixed weeks. It's the end of July into the first week of August.
And is this a family affair?
It is.
So who all went besides you and Jennifer and Joseph and Millie and Layla?
My daughter, I believe my daughter came down that year for the weekend in between. And the kids were there, her kids were there as well.
And what were the living arrangements? Did y'all rent a house or?
We have a timeshare.
And so August 5th through August 8th, is that fair to say that Millie and Layla stayed there with you all those days?
August 5th through August 8th. I'm not sure if they did. I couldn't be sure.
Of the dates, okay. Well, let me show you what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit 57 and ask you if you can identify that photograph.
Yes.
And take a look at that, the back of that photograph. When is that photograph taken?
I don't have my glasses on. So many numbers here. Oh, it says August 8th, 2015.
Time you're on the evidence, Defendant's Exhibit 57 and ask to publish the video.
Okay.
Is this in front of your timeshare?
It is.
And who do we see here?
It's my son, Joseph Rosenbaum, Millie, my daughter-in-law, Jen Rosenbaum, and Layla.
And apart from the birthdays and the family vacations, did you take the girls to Six Flags at some point?
Yes.
And tell us when you went to Six Flags, if you can remember.
It was August, like 28th or 29th.
August 28th or 29th. And who all went on this trip?
It was the girls, a couple of other little girls that I really didn't know, Jen and myself.
And what was your role there for? Were you riding the rides?
No, well, yes and no. I don't ride the big rides because they make me nauseous. So I told Jen that she wanted to go on the bigger rides with the bigger kids, my grandkids like the big rides, my other grandkids. So she went on the big rides with them, and I took care of the little girls.
Now, how were the little girls dressed at this point?
How were they dressed?
Yes, were they?
Layla was in I think it was a little yellow sundress with little panties that matched.
So you could see whether they were bruised or not on their back or their front.
Oh yeah, it was very loose.
Did you see any bruises or any marks on Layla or Millie?
No.
Did you have occasion to help Joseph watch the girls in September when Jennifer went on an overnight trip?
Yes, she had something to do. I think it was with the county. It was overnight. And Joseph came over because he was bored from staying home, and he come over with the girls.
Okay. And what did that entail, helping him take care of the girls? What did y'all do?
We just played together.
Did you put them to bed?
He doesn't. I'm sorry.
Did you put them to bed at all?
I don't remember putting him to bed at that time. No.
So it was the afternoon?
Yes. Into the evening, but I don't think they stayed overnight. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Did you have an opportunity to have the girls stay with you overnight?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? When was that?
It was over my husband's birthday, which is October 3rd. I think it was like the end of September, probably like the 30th, until probably around the 5th of October.
And did the girls stay with you?
Yes.
Did they sleep at your house?
Yes.
Did they go to anybody else's house?
No.
Did they go to your daughter's house at all?
No.
So you took care of them during this period of time?
Yes.
Who bathed them?
I did.
Who tucked them in at night?
My husband and myself.
So you had opportunities to see them unclothed, correct?
Yes.
And did you see any bruises, marks, or cuts or abrasions?
No. If I would have saw anything on those kids, I would have turned Jen and Joseph both in myself.
Why did the girls not go to South Dakota with Jennifer and Joseph?
They were going...
Can you speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry. They were going to South Dakota because my ex-husband was getting married, which is Joseph's father. And they had found out shortly before going up there that it was going to be at a casino or a tavern of some sort, and they didn't want to take the kids.
Did you take the children to Chuck E. Cheese one day?
Yes.
And did anything significant happen?
Well, I took the kids to Chuck E. Cheese on my husband's birthday. Well, him and I took them. We just had a blast. We had little ID cards made with their pictures on it. And they got their little prizes with the tickets, and we had a blast.
Did the girls fall asleep on the way home?
They did, yeah.
Did they get disciplined for falling asleep?
Response?
Not reading, Your Honor, did they?
Overruled.
Did they fall asleep on the way home?
They fell asleep on the way home. It was quite a drive.
Did they get disciplined for falling asleep?
No, of course not.
In all your time that you have been with the girls and with Jennifer and Joseph, have you ever seen or heard the children being disciplined for sleeping?
No. Any parent welcomes that.
On October 17th, did you attend Millie's birthday party?
October 17th, yes, that was at Noah's Ark.
And at Noah's Ark, do you recall the children changing out of their clothing, out of their Halloween costume?
Yeah, Layla was little Olaf, and Millie was Elsa. And before we went to, it was like some kind of festival they were having. Before we went and did the festival stuff after the birthday party, they changed.
And what did they change into?
Just regular clothes.
Did you see them undressed on the picnic
Yeah,
table?
yeah, she had to do it on the picnic table. There was no place else to do it.
And did you see any bruises, marks, cuts, or abrasions?
No.
Did you have occasion to see them on Halloween?
Yes.
And how did you have occasion to see them on Halloween?
For Halloween, everybody went over to Jen and Joseph's house,
And when
take
you-
the kids trick-or-treating. What they did was they drove the kids around in the truck to each of the houses and let them trick-or-treat.
When you say everyone went over to Jen and Joseph's house, who's everyone?
My daughter, her husband, my other grandkids, and Layla and Millie, and myself and my husband, Jennifer and Joseph.
Did you have occasion to see the girls undressed at that time?
My daughter helped Jen in the living room put their costumes on.
So did you see any bruises, marks, or cuts at that time?
No, I did not.
You go on November 11th to a family outing at Olive Garden.
Yes.
And who was there?
Pretty much the same people, myself and my husband, Layla and Millie, and Jen and Joseph, and my daughter Jennifer, and her husband, Randy.
Is there any significant event about that day that rings any bells in your mind as you sit here?
Layla wasn't feeling well. I mean, she didn't want to eat. We tried getting her to eat. Pretty much the whole time she just sat on Jen's lap, and then she fell asleep.
She fell asleep on Jen's lap?
Yeah. I cut my foot that day. I stepped on a piece of glass and it went through my shoe, so I really remember that day.
On November 16th, did you FaceTime the girls?
Yes, I
And
did.
what does that involve?
Just a telephone call where you can see through FaceTime.
And why did you FaceTime the girls?
I was asking Jen, well, actually, I FaceTime them all the time. And they
FaceTime?
ever since we've had the girls, we FaceTime instead of call. So that was nothing unusual. But at that time, I was asking Jen how to spell their names correctly because I was wrapping Christmas presents for the girls.
And what were they doing when you were FaceTiming them on November 17th?
They were sitting at the kitchen table, coloring, having fun.
Did they seem in distress? Did you see any cuts, bruises, or abrasions?
No.
Were you at the hospital on November 17th when Layla passed?
Yes.
What do you remember about that night?
It was horrible.
Can you speak into the microphone?
They took me into a room. In the room was my daughter and her husband, Jen and Joseph, and myself. My husband didn't come with me. And basically there was two people. I think one's name was Cleveland. I don't know who the other one was. He was sitting down, but they started asking Jen what happened, and she was having a hard time telling him because she was so distraught.
When you say she was so distraught, how did that manifest itself?
Well, tears were running down her face, and she was hanging on to Joseph, and she just kept saying she couldn't believe it, she couldn't believe it.
And what was Joseph's reaction? What was Joseph?
He was crying, we were all crying.
What did you hear them talk about?
Who's them?
Cleveland and the other gentleman.
They were asking questions to Jen as far as what happened, what was her recall. Mr. Cleveland, the only reason I know his name because he made a comment to Jen about, he said something like, "Oh, you're that Jen Rosenbaum?"
Did Jen answer the questions as best she could?
Yes.
Have you visited with the girls on other cases other than what I've gone through with you just now?
Yes.
Is it fair to say you spent a lot of time with the girls?
Probably, as far as physically, I'd say on an average, maybe once a week. Between them coming over to the house, all the special occasions, we do everything as a family.
And did you ever see Jennifer or Joseph hit, spank, stomp, or in any way hurt Millie or Layla?
I never did.
Did you ever?
She used timeout.
She used timeout.
She used timeout or not letting them play with their toy.
Did you ever see on them the results of being stomped, hit, spanked with a belt, or hurt in any way?
No, never.
Did you have occasion to see them undressed during these times?
Some of them.
And were you able to see Layla's back, for example?
If she was undressed, I did, yes.
And if she was wearing a sundress, did you have occasion to see her back?
Yes. It was open in the back.
Did you ever see any bruises, marks, cuts?
I never saw anything that didn't look normal for a toddler.
Did Millie or Layla ever tell you they were afraid of Jennifer or Joseph?
No.
Did they ever tell you that they were being hurt, hit, spanked, stomped, kicked?
No.
You had them alone at times, correct?
Yes. I had them alone for a whole week.
And at no point did they say anything about being hit, kicked,
No.
stomped?
They were very affectionate to Jen and Joseph. They love Jen and Joseph. And Jen and Joseph are good parents.
You have other grandchildren. You've testified to that already.
I do.
And do you allow them to go over to Joseph and Jennifer's house?
Yes.
Do you allow them to do that even after their arrest?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns?
No.
Has any of the grandchildren said anything about getting into trouble for falling asleep in the car?
No.
Did Millie and Layla ever tell you anything about getting in trouble for falling asleep in the car?
No.
You said if you saw any abuse, you would have reported and turned in both Jennifer and Joseph.
I would. Yes.
And have you done that before?
Have I done what?
Have you turned in a family member before to DFACS or for abuse?
I didn't turn her in, but I've dealt with defects before for a family member.
Okay. And you have, and it involved children, correct?
Yes, but it wasn't abuse.
Was it fair to say it was neglect?
Yes. Well, yeah.
And in fact, you have worked with DFACS and gotten to be one of the people that children are allowed to be.
I've had defects at my house, looking around, see if it was appropriate for children, asking me and my husband all kinds of questions. I'm sure they did a background check for both of us. Whatever it is they do, I'm sure they did, because I have 2 grandkids that I have custody of.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenbaum.
Okay, cross. Good morning, Ms. Rosenbaum.
Good morning.
My name's Edward Chase. I'm with the DA's office, okay? This is tough for you, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
You love Layla.
I did.
You love Millie.
Yes, I do.
You love your son and your daughter-in-law too, don't you?
I do.
I want to ask you a few questions to follow up, just from some of the answers that you gave before, okay? And if you need a minute, you just let me know, okay?
Okay.
You okay right now? We talked a little bit about some of the training that you received in the military when Ms. Mull was questioned. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she specifically asked you about whether you received child CPR or child Heimlich maneuver. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you recall if you ever received training regarding adult CPR?
In the military?
Yes.
I had combat CPR. It wasn't necessarily child or adult, and it's only for people that are going into combat.
So people, did that include like chest compressions and the
Yes.
rescue breaths and all that?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And what about the Heimlich maneuver? Did you receive any training on the Heimlich maneuver when you were in the
No,
military?
no.
Ms. Mull asked you about a whole bunch of dates. Let me ask you about some dates that are closer in time. When's the last time you saw Layla alive?
On FaceTime.
On FaceTime? And that was on the 16th?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately you have to answer out loud for us just for the
Yes. Yes.
And when you did that, do you recall what she was wearing?
I think it was a a sleeveless shirt. It was like a light green and pink.
But it was, she was wearing a shirt, correct?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't get to see her abdomen?
No.
You didn't get to see her back?
No.
Did you get to see her groin area?
No.
Her upper thigh area?
No.
As far as the, did you notice any abrasions on her face?
No.
Have you seen any of the photographs in this case that have come from either the medical examiner or from the
No, I have not.
Are you aware that the medical examiner found healing abrasions on the forehead?
No.
So it's safe to say that you did not see them.
I did not see. I have not seen bruises on Layla or Millie.
So you haven't seen bruises on Millie either.
No.
Are you aware that Millie is a victim in this case as well?
I wasn't aware, but I guess I am now.
You weren't aware that Millie also had injuries to her?
No.
You didn't know that Millie had large bruising on her side and her butt that went up into her.
I did hear that she had a hip injury, but I didn't hear anything about the bruising, if there was bruising.
What about, did you know that Millie had a broken arm?
No.
That was never told to you. Were you aware that Millie had bruising on her neck? That was consistent with a high impact trauma.
No.
Were you aware that Millie had injuries to her ear that were consistent with someone pulling on her ear?
No, I've not spoke with anybody about Millie's injuries, if she had any.
So you knew nothing about that aspect of it?
No.
Does that surprise you at all?
Yes, it does.
Does that concern you at all?
Yes, it
that
does.
Millie had them as well?
Yes.
Why does it concern you?
Because I consider her my granddaughter, and kids that age shouldn't have things like that.
So if she had them and she was only in the custody and care of Joseph and Jennifer when she received them, would that cause you concern as to who inflicted them?
I know better than that.
You know better than that.
I do.
How do you think she got them?
I have no idea. You talking about Millie?
Yes, no.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Were they previous?
Not according to the testimony from people who testified.
Well, I didn't see any bruises other than maybe... In fact, I don't remember seeing any bruises, but if she had any, I'm sure they were just normal kid kind of things that nobody would pay attention to.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you a photograph. Apologize in advance, but I'm going to show you a photograph. I'm going to ask you to look at it and tell me if you think this is a normal type bruise that a child would have. Okay? I'm just going to show it to you. And for the record, I'm showing Stacy to 80, which is a photograph of Millie from the hospital on November 17th.
Are you sure that's a bruise? It looks like a rash.
You think that's a rash?
That doesn't look like a rash.
I'm going to show you the admitted Stacy to 78, which is also a photograph of Millie from November 17th at the hospital.
No, that looks like a bruise.
That looks like a bruise. Show you what's admitted into evidence of status 328. Can you see the side of her neck there?
I do.
Does that appear to be a bruise to you?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I mean, it could have been her scratching.
When's the last time, if you recall, seeing Millie?
Same time.
So you saw her that same time. Do you remember what she was wearing?
I want to say a red outfit, but I'm not sure.
Did you recall some of the side area that I showed you before, the one you thought was a rash? Would that be an area that you would have seen when you were FaceTiming with her on November 16th?
No.
to November 16th, I guess when is the last time you saw them in person, if you recall?
I don't recall.
It's been a few weeks.
I'm sure it wasn't that long.
Did you maybe at least a week?
Probably at least a week. I was going to, in fact, I called Jen on the 17th, and I told her that I was going to come over, or that I wanted to come over, but I decided not to because it was Jen's birthday, and I was going to go over, and my husband and I, and just bring her a gift for her birthday. But instead of doing that, I called her and I told her that I had bought her some AMC movie tickets for her and the kids and Joseph, and they could just go, have a family night or whatever for her birthday. But that was a phone call. That wasn't FaceTime.
Okay. You talked a little bit about, with Ms. Mall, the trip to South Dakota, correct? And I think he decided that the girls were not going to go. Were you aware, though, that she told the girls' biological family that that at the last minute they needed the plane ticket for, I believe it was Joseph's sister, and so they were just going to drive Millie. So they indicated that Millie was going to go as well. Were you aware that they made those? Jennifer?
I thought they were going to take the kids until they found out from my ex-husband where it was going to be, where the reception was going to be. And then they asked me if I would watch the kids, my husband and I.
Are you aware that they told the biological family specifically? Excuse me. Who has that device?
Please turn off all electronic devices that have been authorized by Rule 22. Thank you.
I think we were talking about the South Dakota trip. Were you aware that Jennifer told Ms. Banks after the trip was over, had indicated to Ms. Banks that Millie did go, but she just drove instead of flying?
No, I had no idea.
You talked about being in the car with them. Is it safe to say that you were not in the car with them every single time they went somewhere?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So there were occasions where you were in the car, correct?
Yes.
But not every single time, correct?
No.
As far as when you weren't there, would you agree with me that you don't necessarily know what goes on in the home when you aren't physically there?
I agree.
And if there was physical abuse in the house, would you agree with me that that might be something that Joseph didn't mention to you?
No.
You think he would talk to you about the abuse?
Joseph is not the type of person. I don't believe Jen is either. So you could tell me all day long. I'll never believe it.
My question, though, is that would you agree with me that that's something that, if it was happening in the home, he probably wouldn't mention to you?
I wouldn't think you would.
He would not mention that to you?
No. Unless Jen was doing it.
Unless Jen.
And he wasn't, yeah.
All right.
He would. He comes to me for advice quite a bit, actually.
You're mom, right?
Yeah.
You've done it longer than anyone, right? I want to talk about the November 11th Olive Garden. Do you recall what Layla was wearing that day?
No, Layla pretty much sat on Jen's lap the whole time.
Okay.
She didn't feel good.
You don't specifically recall what she was wearing?
No.
Safe to say she had clothes on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There was no incident, or there was no time where she was changed at the table or changed in front of you or anything like that?
No.
We talked about the hospital and Mr. Cleveland coming in. Were you aware that Mr. Cleveland recognized Ms. Rosenbaum from just having to see public access Tuesday?
No, I didn't know where that came from. That's why it struck me as so odd. My daughter's name at the time, well, my daughter's maiden name is Jennifer Rosenbaum. So when he said that, I was like, and both of them were there.
And you mentioned that when the girls were undressed, or when they started examining the body, they saw some injuries, correct? That's what the medical.
I had heard, yes.
Were you aware that some of those injuries were actually healing injuries, meaning that they didn't occur?
I had heard that as well.
Were you aware that Jennifer acknowledged that some of the bruising, that Layla did have bruising at the top of her back?
I don't know where it was.
She acknowledged that she did have some bruising.
I don't know if she did or not.
Is that something that she said in your presence or not?
No. No. You mean, was that part of her story that she told about what happened?
She acknowledged that some of the top were healing.
Ma'am, this is no time for you to ask him questions. He's the one that asks the questions and you provide responses. And you're doing your best to explain to the
Ma'am, the healing, were you aware that she acknowledged that some of the bruising at the top of the back, that Layla had some bruise at the top of the back?
No.
Were you aware that Layla broke her leg?
Yes, I didn't know it was broke. I thought it was just fractured, but yes.
And what did you know about how that fracture occurred?
Jen had told me that Millie had said that when they were at her great-grandmother's home, that Layla had tripped and fell in a hole.
And that's how it happened?
And when they got back, Millie had told her that that had happened. And then when she took the kids to gymnastics,
Were you aware that Layla was never actually enrolled in gymnastics?
I was.
And,
But Jen was thinking about enrolling her. And she took her when Layla had her classes.
and that's what Jen told you? Were you aware that Jennifer has provided a different history of events to various different people as far as how the
I would have no idea what she tells anybody but me.
would it change your opinion if you were to find out that she told different people different versions of events as far as how the leg was broken?
No.
That would not change your opinion?
No, because I wouldn't probably believe them.
You wouldn't believe them. And when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about the medical professionals that she sought treatment from. Were you aware that she told different medical professionals different things?
No, why would I be aware of that?
Were you aware that the second medical professional that she saw, Dr. Duxbury, had specific concerns for child abuse and directed her to go to the Eggleston Hospital, Children's Hospital in Atlanta to seek further treatment? She acknowledged that she would do so, yet never went.
I have no knowledge of that.
Were you aware that she then 3 days later went to another medical professional and did not mention ever going to that previous doctor and the doctor wanting her to go to Eggleston?
Is that a question?
Yes. Were you aware of that?
I don't have any knowledge of that, no.
So were you aware that she told the biological family, she mentioned absolutely nothing about falling in Peggy's yard? Were you aware of that?
No.
Were you aware that Layla had not even been over to Peggy's house in several weeks, if not months?
No.
Were you aware that she told the defects worker nothing about falling at Peggy's house and only fell at gymnastics?
I mean, I don't have any idea what she told other people. I was not aware, no.
Does that concern you?
Yes, in a way, if that's the truth.
That's the truth. It concerns you that she's telling different people different things.
I don't believe she is, but if she was, it would concern me, yes.
And the people at the gym, she also never mentioned anything to the people at the gym that Layla hurt herself there. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that, no.
Would that concern you as well?
It would. She may not have thought that Layla hurt herself that bad. I mean, I wouldn't say anything either if I didn't think anything of it.
Were you aware that in addition to the bruising on the body, that Layla also had a broken arm?
No, yes, I had heard that.
You heard that. Were you aware that the doctors have testified that broken arm was...
But I had heard that was a previous injury.
And where did you hear that from?
Jen and Joseph.
Were you aware that the doctors, however, said that injury was about 10 days to a few weeks old?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Would that concern you?
It would.
Were you aware that Layla also had a healing rib fracture?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
And the type of fracture that she had was in the back, and it's highly indicative of child abuse, because absent child abuse, you don't really see that type of injury. Were you aware of that?
No.
Were you aware that the doctors have also stated that that would have occurred during the time period that Layla was living with Jennifer and Joseph?
No.
Would that concern you?
Of course it would.
Were you aware that Layla also had healing injuries to her abdomen that predated the injuries that occurred on November 17th?
I had heard she had previous injuries.
And where did you hear that from?
Jen and Joseph.
Nothing further.
Thank you.
Just briefly, did you ever see either child favor their arm in any way?
No.
Did either child ever say to you, my arm hurts?
No. I never had any inkling at all that there were injuries to either one of them.
So, with regards to the leg, did she ever tell you my leg hurts prior to the cast being put on it?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You can step down. Thank you. Unless there's an object. No, feel free to go. Which means that you can also stay in the courtroom if you'd like. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our mid-morning break now. We'll take 15 minutes and we'll come back.
Dodger?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Dodger, would you state your full name to the court?
My name is Cordelia Stodgel,
And where do you work, Ms.?
Spalding County Correctional Institution.
And how do you know Joseph Rosenbaum?
We used to be co-workers.
I want to take you back to November 17th. Did there come a time where you received a call for Joseph?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was it?
It was Joseph's wife, Jennifer.
And what did you do when you got that call?
When I got that phone call, she said that she needed to speak with her husband. I tried to transfer that phone call to him. He was posted in control 2. I was unable to transfer the call because we had a new phone system and I wasn't familiar with it. When the phone call came back to me, she said it was an emergency and she really needed to talk to him. So I instructed her to hang the phone up and that I would call him and have him to call her.
What was her demeanor like when
She sounded like she was panicking.
Ask you about this. Have you had occasion to see the girls or talk about the girls with Joseph and you?
Well, no, ma'am. I never met the girls, but yes, I did talk. Joseph did talk to me about the girls sometimes.
And what was his demeanor when he talked to you? About Christmas, let's say.
One day, I asked him had he fallen in love with the girls yet. At that age, they do such cute things. And he smiled and said, "Well, the younger one is clingy." And then he said, "Well, because when I get home, she's right under me every step that I make."
Did he talk to you at all about Christmas?
Yes, we was talking about Christmas decorations. He had put his Christmas decoration out early, way before Thanksgiving. He said he was going to put it up early because they was having Thanksgiving dinner at his house, and he thought the girls would really be excited about the Christmas decorations.
Thank you, Ms. Dodger.
No questions. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And you're excused.
We would call Lakeith Billingsley to witness that.
Lakeith Billingsley? Yes. Are you Ms. Billingsley? Come forward, please. Raise your hand, please. Ms. Billingsley.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ms. Billingsley, if you would please tell the court, give your court your name,
Lakeith Billingsley.
and how do you, where are you employed?
Clayton County Division of Family and Children Services.
And Ms. Billingsley, do you know who Millie Place is?
I do.
And do you know who Mrs. Peggy Banks is?
I do.
I want to talk to you about Miss Banks and Millie. When you were overseeing Millie at that point in time, what years were they?
I received the case in February of 2017, and then I transferred the case to the adoption unit in October of 2018.
And you had occasion to document a lot of what you did, correct?
Correct.
Was it part of your practice to make good record of what you saw and what you heard?
Correct.
Is that what you're taught to do?
Yes.
And let me ask you this. Was there ever any complaints about Millie being coached by Peggy Banks?
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
There were some instances where I received information from the service providers that were doing the supervised visits between Millie and her siblings, where the grandmother attended the visits.
Was a transporter told this individual
Response?
Your Honor, I can rephrase the question so it doesn't call for hearsay.
Okay.
Did you document in your notes an instance where you were concerned that Millie was being coached?
Yes.
Did, in fact, Millie's father complain of Millie being coached? Jacob Blaze.
I don't recall, but if it's in the records, then yes, that was something that was brought to my attention that I documented.
Okay. Peggy Banks was someone you had to work with, correct?
Correct.
And at the time that you were dealing with her, she was trying to get Millie herself, correct?
Yes.
And what did she tell you about who should or should not adopt Millie? It's Peggy Banks. Steve. If we move on. So you may answer, what did Ms. Banks tell you about who she wanted Millie to be with?
As I recall, there were some conversations that we had surrounding Millie being placed with her two sisters for the purpose of adoption. However, that would have been with a foster parent. So the department's first priority is to find a relative for the kids, which really was placed with her maternal great-grandmother. So we were solely focused on her, remaining with her if possible. However, there was a conversation that was had between myself as well as an adoption supervisor that went out to the home with me to complete an adoption consideration evaluation. And if I'm not mistaken, within that visit that we had at the home in the completion of the adoption consideration waiver, Ms. Banks did explain to us that if she was not the one that could adopt Millie, she would like her to be adopted by church-like individuals.
Did she say to you that she wanted Millie adopted by white Christians?
I'm not sure about the white part, but yes, she did want her to be adopted by a Christian-like family.
You're not sure. Would it help you to refresh your recollection if I show you the document?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
What did she tell you she wanted?
From the documentation, I documented that she stated that she did want her to be adopted by people at her church, which would have been white Christians.
You also made notations that Peggy was teaching Millie to react negatively to people, correct?
Yes, those were my observations at the time.
And Peggy told Millie that her aunt Elaine Place was part of the reason her sister was killed. Isn't that what she said?
Yes, that was brought to me by in visits, multiple visits that I had with the child Millie.
It's fair to say that Peggy was talking about the death of Layla, her sister.
Correct.
And she was talking about the death to Millie.
Yes.
And she was telling her things that were inappropriate for a child to hear.
Yes.
And you made a note that you wanted to talk to Peggy about brainwashing the child against other individuals.
Yes.
And you also made a note that lying for Millie was an issue.
Yes.
And Millie was also climbing on furniture.
Correct.
And at one point she's stacking chairs on the bed to reach up into the ceiling area, correct?
Yes, that was reported to me.
She had, when you were supervising her, she had cuts and scrapes on her elbow, and she told you she got that from doing flips on the sidewalk, correct?
Correct.
And on another occasion you noticed a red mark and she said she fell, correct?
Yes.
And this is in 2018.
Correct.
And when you visited on one of your monthly visits to Miss Banks, she reported to you that Millie told whoppers, correct?
Correct.
And what does whoppers mean to you?
After doing some further investigation, whoppers meant to her telling lies.
Okay. And Miss Banks, in addition to saying Millie should be adopted by white people, said that she cannot be adopted by same-sex couple, correct?
That's correct.
And Miss Banks basically told you she wanted to homeschool Millie.
She did mention that.
And then Millie told you she wanted homeschooling, correct?
Correct.
It's fair to say that you were concerned about the influence that Miss Banks was having on Millie.
Yes, initially.
And didn't you say that she is being traumatized? What did you say about Peggy? How did you characterize what Peggy was doing to Millie?
It was traumatizing to the child, as there were a lot of concerns about age-appropriate conversations with the child, as well as the child had been through a lot of trauma already that was observed by myself, as well as concluded by the therapist that I put in place for her. So within that, I was trying to make the situation that she was going through, being in foster care and leaving her in foster care, as less traumatic as possible.
And Peggy was talking about, what was Peggy talking about to Millie with regards to Millie's biological mother?
During monthly visits, there were some conversations when I spoke with the child alone in her room. There were some conversations surrounding the mom being unstable and cannot care for her, as well as there were some conversations about the mom basically, I should say, living from house to house with different people, and then the mom was inconsistent with the visits with the child as well.
So the mom, let's unpack that one by one. The mom, first of all, was inconsistent with her visits. She was not coming to the visits on a regular basis, was she?
Correct.
In fact, there were times where she couldn't be found.
Yes.
Now, you say that Miss Banks was saying inappropriate, not age-appropriate things. Did she ever tell Millie that her biological mother, was strung out?
Yes, that was something that the child disclosed to me during monthly visits.
Did Peggy Banks influence Millie to have visits with her sisters only once a week? Was that a problem you all faced?
No, it wasn't Miss Banks influencing the child to only have visits with her sibling once a week. The department scheduled the visits once a week, so that was something that we had in place for them. And then as the case moved forward, we started to have weekend visits, longer visits with the child with her siblings at the potential foster home that she was going to be moving to with siblings.
Were you concerned about adult conversations with Millie?
Yes.
Were you concerned about Millie lying?
Yes.
Did Nana tell defects? What did Nana tell defects with regards to who she wants? Was Miss Raven someone that was considered for placement?
Yes.
And what was Nana's concern, or what was Nana happy about this or not?
She was.
Why is that? What did she say?
Objection, here's
It's the same sort of thing about Why was Miss Banks happy about Miss Raven when Miss Raven was being considered?
She identified her as a friend of hers from the church.
And what was there about her that she liked so much?
Ms. Raven had a family of her own. She had younger daughters about the same age as Millie. And to my knowledge, the biggest thing was that she was a friend of the family that Millie knew, as well as Ms. Banks knew, that attended the same church as they did.
Did she tell you that this woman was a Christian woman with a Christian husband?
Correct.
What did Millie tell you about how she finds out a lot of information?
From her nana, Miss Peggy Banks.
And that was told to you by Millie?
Correct.
Millie was pretty grown up, wasn't she?
Yes.
And she explained that she got a lot of information from Miss Banks?
Yes.
There came a time in April of 2018 where Miss Harrell came into the picture, correct?
Yes. Well, she's been in the picture since I've had the case in 2017. She's the foster parent of the younger two siblings of Millie.
Okay, but with regards to Millie, she came into the picture in about 2018, correct?
Yes.
And Millie was living with her? You recall that?
No, she was not living with her in April. She did, hold on. Yes, she was living with her in April.
And did Miss Harrell ever convey any concern to you about Millie fabricating stories?
Yes.
Did she tell you that it was happening more frequently?
Yes.
Millie would be, is it fair to say that Millie would be injured from playing outside? Scratches, bumps, bruises?
There has been incidents where she did obtain scratches from being from playing outside. But as far as bruises, no.
Was one of the goals for Millie to reduce her lying or eliminate her lying?
Yes, that was part of her treatment plan.
Thank you, Ms. Billings, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Fall. Ms. Andrews.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Billings.
Good morning.
Ms. Andrews. I have a few questions for you. You were the case manager in 2017, is that correct?
I received it in February of 2017.
So all the statements that you just discussed with Ms. Mull were regards to things that Ms. Banks allegedly told Millie about, things that had nothing to do with Jenner Joseph Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So none of those coaching that was discussed had anything to do with what happened to Millie while in the house of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum, correct?
No, not to my knowledge.
And so were you aware that prior to Millie living with Peggy Banks and subsequent to November 17 of 2015, Millie did state that Jennifer twisted her arm?
I don't recall.
Are you aware that prior to Millie going to live with Peggy, Millie disclosed that Jennifer spanks her with a belt?
I don't recall.
Were you aware that prior to Millie living with Peggy Banks, Millie told individuals that Joseph would put cream on her bruises when it hurt?
I don't recall.
And were you aware that prior to Millie living with Peggy Banks, she expressed that Jennifer would knee her in the stomach?
I don't recall.
Were you aware that prior to Millie living with Peggy Banks, she told detectives that Jennifer Rosenbaum squeezed her leg?
No.
And were you aware that prior to Millie living with Peggy, she explained to detectives that Jennifer Rosenbaum would hold Layla by one arm when coming down the steps, and that was when she was getting in trouble?
No.
And so were you aware that the lies that Millie was stating had to do with her not brushing her teeth?
Yes.
And were you aware that the lies had something to do with like not putting her socks on?
Yes.
So those are the whoppers that you mentioned earlier?
Correct.
I believe Ms. Mull had asked you about some bruising to Millie when she was playing outside. Is that correct?
Correct.
While you were Millie's case manager in 2017 and 2018 living with Peggy Banks, did Millie ever have any injuries like that, which is in Exhibit 80? Can you turn around?
No.
And as a case manager, if you had seen those injuries to Millie, would you have been concerned?
Yes.
Would you have been concerned about child physical abuse?
Yes. Those types of injuries would have actually prompted an investigation.
Into child abuse?
Yes.
Now it's Exhibit 78. Did Millie ever have any injuries that looked like that while she was living with Miss Peggy Banks?
No.
And have you seen an injury like this on Millie while living with Peggy Banks that had prompted an investigation?
Yes.
And would you have had concern for child physical abuse?
Yes.
Are you aware that the research has shown that it is harder to coach 3- and 4-year-olds than older children?
Yes.
Okay. So you're aware it's harder to coach the younger child?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
You can take it, Ms. Wall.
Are you aware, Ms. Billingsley, that it can be done?
Anything's possible.
But you yourself complained about Ms. Banks coaching Millie, correct?
I did.
And you said that it was traumatizing her, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
What was she coaching her about?
And I don't know if coaching is the correct word to use. I think it was more so the information that was privy to the child. It was, like I stated earlier, it was not age appropriate. I think it was more so the information that was given to her was stated repetitively to her. So it was more so something that stuck in the child's mind, I should say. So when I would have visits with her, there would be certain questions that I would ask that she was kind of fearful to answer and she would make the response, well, Nana told me such and such, or Nana told me such and such. So I don't know if coaching is the correct word. I just think my biggest thing was the conversations were not age appropriate for the child.
So Millie was very clear that she got the information from Nana as opposed to seeing it or experiencing it with her own eyes.
Yes.
Okay. And those inappropriate things that she was talking about, was that all ever have anything to do with Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum and what happened to Millie?
No, the most she ever stated about this case was what was said about her aunt, Elaine Place.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. You step down. You're excused unless there's objection.
No.
You're excused. Defense calls next witness.
Call Keisha Hossley. Sorry. Hossley.
Right up here, please, ma'am. Oh, right here, sir. Just raise your right hand. Just raise it.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Could you please sit down and state your name?
Takesha Hosley,
And Ms. Hosley, where do you work?
Department of Family and Children Services,
And how long have you worked there?
since December 2014.
And did you ever come in contact with Millie Place?
Yes.
And tell us about what year that was that you came in contact with Millie Place.
That was, I believe, in February of 2016.
Okay. Do you recall a time when Millie's mother complained that Millie had a black eye?
Yes.
And was this also around February of 2016?
Right.
And was she with the Lamberts at that time?
Yes, she was.
And did the Lamberts also receive the complaint? Was it made known to them?
Yes.
And did Lamberts have complaints of their own about Millie's behavior since she began having regular visits with her mother and great-grandmother?
She did. Yes.
And was this around the same time that the biological mother complained of a black eye?
Yes.
And what did Miss Lambert complain to you about with regards to Millie's contact with her mother and great-grandmother?
Response?
Your Honor, Millie has testified, and Ms. Banks has testified, and this is just impeachment.
An inconsistent statement?
She's asking her what Ms. Lambert told her that Millie said. So she's asking about what Ms. Lambert said, so I'm not sure.
This is a double hearsay.
I will move on and rephrase it in a different way, Judge. Did you have any problems with Millie coming back home from visits with her mother and grandmother about what she would say?
I'm unaware. I wasn't the foster care caseworker on the case. I only went out just the one time to meet with Millie after I was called in for the investigation.
Okay. So there was an investigation about the black eye?
Right.
And did you take Millie from the Lambert home to the hospital?
I did.
And was this in the wee hours of the morning?
It was around, I believe I made it to the home maybe around 7 p.m. and we went to the hospital right after.
And did you come home to the Lambert home around 2:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Did Ms. Lambert tell you that they feared Mr. Lambert would lose his job if his employer found out about the allegations of Millie having a black eye?
Yes.
Did they tell you that they would allow Millie to stay for the remainder of the night, but she had to be out the next day?
I do remember saying that, well, Ms. Lambert saying that she wanted her gone as soon as possible. I don't recall whether it was the next day. Just, I believe, well, I really don't remember. I don't remember when she said she wanted her gone.
Let me show you what some documents to see if that refreshes your recollection.
Okay. Okay, according to my documentation, she did state that she wanted Millie could stay for the remainder of the night, but she wanted me to notify DFACS immediately that she would have to leave.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No further questions.
Okay, response?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So I just want to be sure. So the complaint about this alleged black eye came from Tessa Clendenny.
Yes.
The mother of a girl, well, two girls, one that had been abused while in foster care and one that had been killed while in foster care.
Right.
She saw a mark on her daughter's eye.
Which characterization would I give to what you got from me to say she was
Based on this, the jury in some respects, the same objection.
A mother who had a child that had died while she was in the care of foster parents.
Yes.
And her mother would have a child that showed up with bruises that were, well, let me ask you first. As an investigator, you can look behind you. If you saw these types of bruises, and that's states number 80, what would you characterize those bruises if you saw those on a child? As a caseworker or an investigator, thank you. Well, how would you characterize those injuries that's in states 80?
Can you clarify? What do you mean, how?
If you observed a child that had those types of bruises on them, would there be an investigation as to physical abuse?
Yes.
So Tessa Dane, you had a child who had bruises that would be consistent with physical abuse, made a complaint in February about a mark on her daughter's eye. Is that how this all came about?
Yes.
That you got involved?
There was a complaint that Millie had a black eye, right?
And you started an investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
And you took Millie out of the home of the Lamberts and took her to the hospital?
Yes.
And were you there during the hospital visit?
Mm-hmm.
Did you observe the injury to Millie's eye?
I did.
Can you describe that to us?
I can't remember which eye it was near, but it looked like a small scratch.
So not a black eye, a small scratch?
Not in my opinion, no, it was a black eye.
And then you returned her at 2:30 in the morning to the Lambert's home?
Yes.
And in fact, Ms. Lambert told you that she was concerned not only just about the allegation, but the constant barrage that she was getting from media.
Yes.
And she was also concerned about the phone calls from unknown numbers in regards to Millie Place being in her home.
Yes.
And the plan was never for Millie to stay with the Lamberts, right? The case was going to be transferred?
That's correct.
So this was just a temporary setting?
Yes, it was.
So Ms. Lambert's concern that night was that, I guess it was just too much for her at that point.
Yes.
And she did mention her husband's job.
She did.
Because there was a lot of media surrounding this particular child.
Right.
And that was one of the concerns that she had, that a case was being investigated involving the same child in her home.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you investigate the rest of that case?
Meaning?
Did you substantiate it or unsubstantiate it?
It was unsubstantiated.
So in your regards to Ms. Lambert, was there any substantiation for neglect?
No.
Or physical abuse?
No.
Or maltreatment?
No.
Was Millie really was removed because Ms. Lambert asked that she be removed due to all of the barrage and the conflict that she was having in regards to Millie being in her home?
Well, actually, she was removed. Clayton County went ahead and picked her up the following day. So the case transferred.
So they just finished the transfer that was already in place?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Isn't it true, Ms. Hosley, that Ms. Lambert told you she wanted her out the next day, that she could stay the night, but she could not stay any longer?
She did say she immediately.
And is it not true that she said that they were concerned about that Mr. Lambert would lose his job if his employer about the hours?
Yes.
Now, Ashley, do you remember her exact words of what you put in your report?
I can't recall the exact words, but what I put in the documentation is basically what was said. She was concerned. Ms. Lambert was concerned about the media attention, the phone calls. She was concerned about her husband possibly losing his job as well.
And she told you that she couldn't stay until the transfer occurred. She needed to be removed before the transfer.
Yes.
She didn't say the next day. She just said she can't stay here until the transfer is complete.
Right. She just said that she wanted me to notify my supervisor that she needed to move immediately.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And you're excused.
Thank you.
That's just an objection.
No objection.
No objection from the defense?
No objection.
Excuse me. Please call your next witness.
I call Alicia Robertson to the stand.
This way, ma'am. Right over here. Straight away. This was for you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you sit down? Would you state your full name for the record?
Misha Robertson.
And Ms. Robertson, are you familiar with the case of Millie Place and Laila Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you first come on to that case? At what year and what was going on at that time?
I believe it was in 2014. I haven't been with the agency, Henry County Defects, in a while, and I haven't had any contact with the family since the time that I brought those kids into care, which I believe was in early 2015.
Do you recall talking to Cynthia Tate and Tiffany Chapman?
I haven't reviewed the file, but I believe you're referring to the safety resources.
Yes.
For Laila Daniel.
Yes.
So I would have had to make contact with them monthly. Yes.
And do you recall them telling you that Layla develops a rash if she drinks anything with vitamin C or orange juice in it?
I don't recall that, ma'am.
You don't recall that?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall being told that if she's put in anything but Huggy diapers, she develops a rash?
I don't recall that, ma'am.
So you don't recall anything about what happened that time?
As I stated, I haven't had contact with this family since approximately early 2015. So, and I'm not with the agency. I don't have access to the record. So I don't, unless I'm able to review it.
Let me show you a document and see if that helps refresh your recollection.
On this documentation, this appears to be my documentation from during that time, and I wrote that Tate reported that Layla will break out with a rash when she drinks orange juice. So Tate and Chapman restrict her consumption of same.
You spoke really fast there. What did you just say? It
I'm
escaped
sorry.
me.
I said that I noted that Tate, referring to Cynthia Tate, reported that Layla will break out with a rash when she drinks orange juice. So Tate and Chapman, Tiffany Chapman, restrict her consumption of same, meaning the orange juice.
Okay. Does it say anything about Huggies?
I don't see that noted on here, just for me quickly browsing it.
If you do remember now that she breaks out with a rash when she drinks orange juice, correct?
That's what I report. I noted that the caregivers reported at that time, yes.
There came a time where you came in contact with Peggy Banks, is that correct?
She was the other safety resource for the other child, Millie Place.
And do you recall Peggy Bank telling you that Cynthia... It's impeachment.
All right.
Banks make any statements to you? Make any statements to you about Miss Tate and her daughter Tiffany?
I don't recall. As I stated, I would have to review the record.
See if this refreshes your recollection.
What's that?
What, if anything, did Miss Banks tell you about the Tates and about Miss Tate?
Specifically about how the child was doing with Miss Tate?
No, specifically about Miss Tate. What does she say about Miss Tate?
From my documentation, it says that the grandmother, Miss Banks, reported that she talks to Cynthia Tate about once a week via phone, that Millie and Layla had not visited with each other since Christmas, she goes on to talk about other stuff.
Let me ask you this. Did she mention anything about Miss Tate and alcohol?
It's noted that the grandmother said that she and Millie visited Tate's home, and Tate disclosed to her that she had drank alcohol. The grandmother stated that Tate is a recovering alcoholic, and if she took a drink of alcohol, she could be struggling with issues regarding alcohol abuse. She said that she never observed Tate intoxicated, and that Tate did not present as intoxicated when she disclosed that she had drank alcohol when her and Millie had visited for Christmas.
Did Miss Tate talk to you about Miss Banks? Did she say anything about Miss Banks and the statement about alcohol?
Once again, I haven't had contact, so if you want me to review that record, then I can do that. I haven't had recent contact, so it's been a while.
Let me show
Your Honor, if I can see what she's showing the witness. Yes.
This documentation is from a visit that was completed on March 19th of 2015. And during that visit, Ms. Tate stated that she complained about the family lying, and the maternal great-grandmother, is the person behind making false claims. She says that she complained about the maternal great-grandmother, Miss Banks, saying that she was drinking alcohol and has a man in the home. Tate stated that the maternal great-grandmother is a spiteful woman, and she stated that the maternal great-grandmother does not even call or inquire regarding Layla unless she wants Chapman to babysit Millie.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ball. Mr. Chase.
To be real clear about the timing, this was March of 2015?
Correct.
This was before the children were placed with the Rosenbaums, correct?
Correct. I was the Family Preservation Services case manager. I monitored the placement of the two children in the safety resource home. So I would say I was a case manager for probably about 4 months, a brief period of time. I took them both into care when the safety resources could no longer provide care for them, and there was no other relative or friend that could provide care for them.
And it's safe to say that Miss Banks and Miss Tate, there's no love lost between them, correct?
Correct.
All right. But Miss Banks specifically, what she said to you was that Miss Tate was a recovering alcoholic.
Yes.
Miss Tate had said something to her about having a sip of alcohol.
Yes.
But Miss Banks never observed her alcohol.
Correct. That was what I noted. Yes.
So the children were never, she never observed Miss Tate under any sort of influence whatsoever.
Correct. She reiterated that point, and I noted down in the documentation.
I want to show you some photographs about some of the rashes. Now, is this what, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 1. It's going to be behind you. Is this what Miss Banks described? Miss Tate described when she said something about vitamin C?
No.
Would an injury like this have concerned you?
Very much so.
How about this? Is this what Miss Tate described to you when she said something about vitamin C?
No.
Ms. Mull also asked you about Huggies. Is that what Ms. Tate described to you when she said something about the children having an allergy from Huggies?
No, as I stated, I didn't see any information in the documentation that I noted any issues with Huggies.
Okay. So you don't even have any recollection of this Huggy thing, correct?
Correct.
All right. That's not even in your documentation.
Correct.
All right. But that's not something that no one had ever described anything like that to you, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
All right. Did anyone describe anything like this when they were talking about vitamin C?
No.
Nothing further.
Let's give this a second to clear everything together.
Ms. Roberson, isn't it true that you noted that she should only be put in Huggies diapers, not any other kind of diaper?
This is an emergency intake form for when the child was brought into foster care. On this in my handwriting is noted, use Huggies, wipes, and diapers only. That may have been something that came up after the fact because this is dated 4/15. I don't know what date was on that documentation you gave me, but this is dated 4/15 of 15.
So you were told by somebody that the child should only be put in Huggies?
Based on what I just saw, yes.
And nobody talked to you when they talked to you about the vitamin C or about the Huggies? Nobody showed you any pictures of injuries or rashes or anything like that, did they?
Well, as a family preservation services case manager, and my intended placement of those kids is my responsibility to observe them every month, and I would observe them physically undressed. And with her being nonverbal, I would look at her whole body. So if any of that was bruises, marks, lacerations was on her, then I would see it,
Okay, now
and I would note it.
let's try to answer the question. With regards to, did anybody show you pictures and say, this is what vitamin C rash should look like, this is what a non-Huggies diaper should cause? Did anybody show you pictures?
No.
Did you at any time when you had responsibility for Layla see any bruises or cuts or abrasions on her?
Not that I recall, but I would have to review my documentation. If I did see it, it would be noted in the documentation.
Very briefly, in all the time that you were a caseworker with defects, did you ever see any of the photographs that I showed before? Did you ever see anything like that related to a vitamin C rash?
No.
Did you ever see anything like that related to Huggies diapers?
No.
Did you ever see anything like that, however, related to abuse?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down, and you're excused unless there's objection.
Okay.